Joining us now is Douglas Holtz-Eakin. He is the president of the American Action Forum. Douglas, Trump was sort of hot on it in his first term. Biden actually floated the idea last year. Now President Trump is signing an order to explore the creation of it. Why wouldn't it be a good idea?
Well, it looks like a solution searching for a problem. You know, they've mentioned a bunch of uses of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So vaccines, well, we have the NIH, and you can fund that. Infrastructure, we had a bipartisan infrastructure bill. We can do more of that. Counter the Belt and Road, the Chinese initiative. Well, we have the International Development Finance Corporation, put more money in that. The reality is we have programs and national priorities, and they can be funded. And the source of that money is ultimately going to be the U.S. economy and the tax power of the federal government. So I don't know what problem we're solving if we were to create this. And to create it, you have to raise taxes and stick it in a fund, not spend the money, and that is not something this Congress or administration does very well.
Because the countries that, and for people not listening, a sovereign wealth fund, for lack of a better term, is a government that is generally a rich government, puts a bunch of their excess cash flow into an investment idea, and then they go out and buy stakes or buy companies. Singapore has one, sure. Norway has one, Saudi Arabia has one, a few others, but those are the big three. The difference between us and those three nations is they're not running gigantic and growing debts or deficits.
Correct. You used the word surplus. We haven't seen that since 2000, and so our problems are the reverse. We are trying to struggle to figure out where to put our surpluses. We need to control the growth rate of big federal spending programs, provide taxes sufficient to fund the ones that we're holding on to, and that is the challenge for the United States, not dealing with excess funds.
Is there any scenario under which this could make sense?
It's hard for me to imagine that. And I know I don't want to rain on the President's parade and the Secretary of Commerce, but, you know, the idea that we're going to have warrants, equities, hold to do a COVID vaccine, that's called nationalizing a pharmaceutical company. And I don't think that's something that they intend to do. People like to do equity investments, but they're also risky. And so you're putting the taxpayer dollars at risk. You know, we've gone through this same discussion when we talk about funding Social Security and using equities. We go through this discussion all the time, and there's no magic here. You cannot do financial engineering to solve our fiscal problems. You need to raise taxes, cut spending, and make things balance out.
You know, I'm also curious that kind of as a parallel argument to the one over the years about allowing Social Security to invest in the stock market, which I kind of like. Maybe I'm the only one, but it seems the idea that building wealth in the long run kind of comes from that exposure, and yet we have this massive kind of wealth pot that we need to grow its wealth, and it can't access that. So I know there's many more sophisticated arguments against this, but is there a way in which Social Security could kind of, you know, try to act out some of this to kind of shore up its own funding and to solve some of those debt and deficit problems that a lot of people say the Sovereign Wealth Fund wouldn't solve?
Well, I think there are two issues there. The first is using equities to fund Social Security. You know, we broached this idea under then President George W. Bush, and you know, a lot of people don't like the idea of the government having a big fund of equities, which telling people how to run their companies, being majority owners, nationalizing companies. His approach was to let individuals make those equity investments. That sort of addresses the power issue, but it doesn't address the risk issue, which is equities are riskier than U.S. Treasuries, and as a result, you expose people with the possibility that you get a downturn just as they're about to retire, they don't have the money, and that argument ultimately, I think, won the day back 20 years ago. Will we take another run at it? Actually, I hope so, because we need to deal with Social Security, which is an enormous fiscal problem for the United States, and having that debate would be healthy. But I don't think it worked the first time, and I'm skeptical it will work again the second time.
Interesting. Well, it's still kind of fun to contemplate. Think about what could solve all of these issues then. Doug, thanks very much today.
Thank you.
Douglas Holtz-Eakin.